Shmai Laura.
Shmai Pat.
Croiso, welcome.
Thank you.
Taking this opportunity to get to know you a bit better in your new role as Chancellor and to allow the Cardiff University community to know you a bit better. So a few simple, straightforward questions just to who is Laura? Let's start with that is the easy one, the first one. Who is Laura Trevelyan? Tell me, what's your backstory?
Well, I'm absolutely honoured to be the new Chancellor of Cardiff University. That's the most important thing to say, and thank you, Pat, for your role in that appointment. But who am I? Oh my gosh, I was born in August 1968. My mum always says I was born on the day that the Russian tanks rolled into Czechoslovakia and crushed the Prague Spring. So, born into history, born to be a journalist. I grew up in North London. When I was 7 years old, I had a little newspaper called the Cantelo's Gleaner about the goings-on in our street. Went to Bristol University, came here for a postgrad to do a journalism course, met my husband here, launched me on a lifelong love of the news. Moved to the States in 2004, worked for the BBC for 30 years, did everything from being a political correspondent here in the UK to a US election correspondent to an anchor, left the BBC a couple of years ago. I've been advocating for the Caribbean's reparatory justice agenda because I'm descended from enslavers in the British Caribbean. And I have just recently started to do a little bit of freelancing because you might have noticed quite a tumultuous time in American politics.
A bit going on.
A pleasure to be back here in Cardiff.
That's great. And I mean, you came to Cardiff. What are your memories of Cardiff when you studied here?
Oh my gosh. Friendships, lifelong friendships, a husband, as I may have mentioned,
Yep.
Still married.
Good.
27 years later. Just this city, the capital of Wales, has such a strong sense of identity and history and culture, whether it's the rugby or Cardiff Castle or the language. I just loved that year of being here and being in the United Kingdom, yet feeling like I was in a completely different bit of it and immersing myself in that. So I love Cardiff and it's a pleasure to be back here.
So when you come back, are there places that you visit? Are there old people? I mean, obviously you've got friends here.
Yeah, I mean, Cardiff Castle, that's my favourite. And the statue of Nye Bevan, I like to go past that because it just reminds you of a founding father of Wales and his incredibly important role in setting up the National Health Service in post-war Britain. That Nye Bevan is a totemic figure in British history. So I love to go past that statue of Nye and think about what that means.
Now, I know Wendy and I approached you to become Chancellor. Why on earth did you accept?
Well, how could you say no to such an incredible honour? It was actually over the Thanksgiving holiday in the US, which I know doesn't exist here in Britain. So it's one of the few quiet periods. And I was it was Black Friday, in fact, as we call it in the US. And I was sort of reading my emails as you do and not doing any online shopping. And this email arrives asking if I might be interested in becoming the next Chancellor of Cardiff University. And I said to my husband, look at this. And he said, I mean, how extraordinary. What an honour, what a privilege, what a chance to be able to give back, what a chance to be an ambassador for this incredible place that gave you so much. So we were both beyond thrilled, and I couldn't be more excited to be here now.
Oh, thank you for accepting as well. So you've had a long journalistic career. How has that shaped you, and how might that shape your approach to the chancellorship?
Well, journalism is about storytelling. It's about synthesising complicated global events and explaining it in the lowest common denominator to an audience. So I think truth-telling, storytelling, I hope to be able to tell the incredible story of Cardiff to as wide an audience as possible, to tell the story of this special place, which I know this is a difficult moment, but we'll get through it. And at the other end of it, we have Wales's Russell Group University, which is carrying out world-beating research, that this is an incredible place to study, a place to make lifelong friendships, and I want to bang the drum for Cardiff.
This role is largely ceremonial, but as you said, you come at a challenging time for the university and for the whole sector, actually. What do you make of what you've seen? How do you interpret what you're seeing?
Well, I can see it's an incredibly difficult time for everybody in the community, and a university is a community, and Cardiff University is a particularly special community that has a central place in Welsh culture. So I feel the anxiety, I sense it, I know how hard this is, but look at what's happening at the entire university sector. This has been a long time coming. As Wendy has said, there is an existential crisis facing UK universities. And I come from America where there's a different crisis currently. But there isn't a funding crisis that's happening here. Essentially, British universities don't have enough money coming in, and they've turned to international students to fill the gap. And now that's drying up. So we are where we are, and my hope is that there will be stability at the end of this period, but I just know how difficult it is, and I feel for everybody involved.
You touched there on events in the United States. American University is going through a different sort of crisis, and you've got 3 kids, or 2 of which I think have been through the system. I mean, what do you make of what's going on there?
Well, what's happening in the US is that the government is trying to control speech that it doesn't like at universities, and it's holding up funding, saying that anti-Semitism is rife in US campuses based on some of the protests against the war in Gaza. But it's really using that as an excuse to control intellectual and academic freedom because it sees the universities as being a power base that it can't control. So that is a problem of a completely different magnitude to what's happening here in the UK. And thank goodness what's happening here is not an attempt by the government to control the intellectual freedom of universities.
Can I touch a bit on your work on reparations? Obviously deeply personal to you. Why did you make that the move that you did, and how is the work going?
Well, I think it's just something that happened to me, really, Pat. And you're of Barbados descent. You know the central contribution of the Windrush generation to Britain. I guess it just happened to me that my ancestors were enslavers in the British Caribbean, in Grenada, information which I didn't know about. I mean, it's a hidden history, isn't it, really, in Britain? We just say, oh, we abolished slavery, that was fantastic, good for us. Not we were involved in it up to the hilt. I mean, you know, why are you here today?
I'm over here because you were over there.
Exactly, because of that history of slavery, but it's pretty poorly understood, isn't it? So when University College London put online their database of all the compensation paid to the enslavers in the British Empire at abolition, which included many members of the Trevelyan family who file for their money, that just led me off on a journey, really. And being a journalist, you want to know what the real story is. So the BBC let me make a documentary in Grenada. Everybody that I met, I asked, should I apologise for what my ancestors did? Should I pay reparations? And the answer was a resounding yes. In answer to how is it going, do I think Britain's government will ever apologise for slavery? Do I think they'll ever pay reparations? I don't know.
And reparations takes many forms. It's not just cash.
No, exactly. I mean, the word has its root in the Latin to repair. So is the act of acknowledging that something horrible happened years ago that has resonance today, is that in itself reparative? Maybe you can let me know, Pat.
It's a start. It'll be a start.
Right.
But it's complicated.
Sure is.
We've had some conversation about this, but how would you hope to use your chancellorship to help build the university?
Well, I couldn't be more honoured to have this role. It's a ceremonial role, obviously. It's an ambassadorial role. What strikes me is that Cardiff has a very strong alumni community, of which you and I are a part. But perhaps we could build on that. And this really comes from my experience in the United States and seeing 2 of my kids have graduated and one's currently in college, where as soon as you arrive at university, you are the great class of 2028 or whatever it is. And that's your identity. And American universities build community from the very minute you arrive. It's not just your years in college. It's a social and professional network that will be with you through your whole life. So it's arriving at college is just the beginning of a lifelong commitment and a journey and a network, which I think is incredibly powerful. And I would just love to see us build on that at Cardiff and have an even stronger alumni network. And one of my ideas is that there should be a few class captains in every graduating class who are responsible for organising the reunions. You know, in the American system, you have a reunion 1 year after you graduate, and then 5, 10, 15, 20 are the big ones. But you can come back every year. So maybe the university could designate a weekend every year that is reunions weekend, put on a bit of a show for the alumni, get to hear about the groundbreaking research that's being done here, and everybody comes for a big party which they organise. I just think we already have this incredible sense of being a Cardiff alumni, and we can just build on that.